Hey everyone, this is Jaleesa from Green Mable. Today we're going to talk about plants I don't water. Now what I mean by do not water or don't water, I mean that I don't water them that often. So the first plant I want to talk about is this snake plant. I have a few snake plants in my plant collection. Here is one that's a black coral. Here is a Sansevieria cylindrica. And here is a very large Sansevieria xylanica. These are very hardy plants. Snake plants can be prone to root rot from overwatering. Whether in the summer or the winter, especially in the winter, you'll want to take a step back from watering your snake plants. They tolerate low light, but they definitely prefer high light. And I have had this very large xylanica for several months now, and I can probably count on one or two fingers like how many times I've watered it. And you can see it's doing just fine. It's very healthy. In fact, it is very close to a western window, gets a lot of good streams of sunlight, and guess what? It's still just fine. I have my snake plants in these plastic planters. I do have one of my snake plants in a ceramic planter, but this is just fine too. This one I water a little bit more often than the larger ones simply because it's in a smaller container. It is much more compact. So I believe the more compact the snake plant is, the more that kind of it may need watering. But these large and lovelies, I don't water them that often. They don't need it. They're healthy and they're fine. If you're a heavy-handed person with watering, hey, tone it down for your snake plants. They don't need it. They're happy and healthy without it. In fact, to tell you a story, I got a snake plant cutting or fall off from a nursery. The nursery was throwing it away, and so I said, hey, can I have it? And the worker there said, well, we're not supposed to, but sure, you can have it. It was kind of like a xylanica. It was a leaf pretty similar to this one. It had root at the bottom, so it wasn't like just a leaf cutting. However, when I brought it home, I did not repot it right away. In fact, I left it in water. Well, once a Sansevieria xylanica is rooted, you should go ahead and place it in soil. And especially when I say rooted, I mean like it had a full like root stalk, like not just little strings of roots, but no, it had a full root stalk. And I kept it in water too long. I was busy doing so many other things. I did not take the time to repot it, and it ended up rotting away because it just couldn't take being in water that long. Well, that is a rather extreme example of snake plants not liking like long exposure to water. But these plants are very hardy. They're desert type. I don't know. I wouldn't say that they're exactly desert type plants, but they are very, they like to be a little thirsty. And also with snake plants, you'll notice that they like to be a little bit root bound. So even though I have not watered this plant has still put off a few new leaves, and I'll show them to you. You can see this one right here. You may not be able to tell that it is a newer stalk or stem, but I know that it is. And then here's another one kind of creeping in between there. So snake plants are very good for people who tend to forget to water their plants. Let's talk about the soil. I have these snake plants in Cactus soil mix. So this soil is pretty coarse and sandy. It's on the rougher side. You can see right here, like it's really kind of on the hardy side. It's got a good amount of perlite in it. I like to have these in these plastic pots mainly because if I don't have to use terracotta, I kind of like tend to avoid it because me and terracotta pots like don't get along. Like I always break my terracotta pots, like and they're bad for moving. We've moved several times, so I'm like, nope. So that covers the snake plants. Next up is this little cactus. I could not talk about plants that I don't water that much without talking about the cactus. So you guessed it, here it is. It is doing just fine. I have it right in the window. At this time of the year of me recording it, it is in the winter, but in the summer, I will place this one outside and I will probably water it once a week. It's a cactus. It's supposed to. You're supposed to do just fine, right? You don't like water. You don't like that stuff. Okay, he says he doesn't. The next plant I want to mention that doesn't get watered that often are ZZ plants. This is the ZZ plant and this is the ZZ Raven. So I don't water these hardly at all. And even though I don't water them, if you notice, this ZZ Raven has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new stems of leaves. This plant is doing amazing. Who knew that the secret to growing a ZZ plant faster and happier is less water? No water. I hardly ever water this thing. This ZZ plant, both of these are paired kind of together in where I have them in the house. They are a few feet back from a south-facing window. However, they're perpendicular to the window, so they're not like right across from the window. They're not in the window. Having these ZZ plants at that perpendicular angle helps them to get good quality amount of light. That explains the amazing growth that these have experienced. This was such a little bitty baby when I got it, and it has grown so much, so much. I don't fertilize these. I have not fertilized them. I have not watered them very often, and they are happy, they're healthy, and they don't give me any trouble. If you want a plant that you don't have to water that often, go for the ZZ plant. You just look at these gorgeous leaves. I just love how beautiful and spooky kind of this ZZ Raven looks. Like, it's so pretty. And these new leaves, if you notice, they're really bright green, but eventually they'll turn darker like these darker leaves on here. They won't stay bright green like these. They both kind of start out the same, but eventually it'll darken up and it'll take on like its native darker ZZ Raven look. Next up, on plants that I don't water that often, it's the air plant. Here it is, the Tillandsia. It is adorable. I don't water this one that often, but I probably should water it a little bit often than that. How I water this is I get a bowl, a large bowl of water. I turn this plant upside down and allow the water to just really penetrate and go through these leaves, as you call it, because it grows without soil. It's an air plant, it doesn't require soil. And how they grow is just very mysterious. But it's another one. It's doing just fine. It doesn't give me a lot of trouble. And right now with it being winter, it's doing just fine without getting regular water. Last but certainly not least of the plants that I don't water indoor. Oh my, this thing is so big now. This aloe vera has gotten so big. You may remember our previous video, aloe vera indoor care. It's so much bigger than that now. It is, these leaves have gotten so huge. I don't water him. The reason why is because these leaves have this big, thick aloe vera gel, and most of that is comprised of water. So it doesn't really need anything. It just kind of hangs out by the window, absorbs a bunch of sunlight, takes in all this energy, looks happy, and it doesn't need any water. I have been in groups where people are like, oh, what's wrong with my aloe vera? And it's like, you overwatered it, you overwatered it, you overwatered it. And ask me how I know, because I had 3 aloe veras that died before due to overwatering. Now, the last one, I will say that it was a rescue from a nursery that had aloe veras marked down on clearance, and I thought that I could save it, but apparently it was just, the root rot was just way too bad, so it was not able to be saved. Given the experience that I've had with aloe veras, I can tell you, if you have them indoors, especially in the winter time, don't water them. If they look sad, if they look like they want water, you know, depending on what size they are, I do believe matters, because the bigger an aloe vera plant is, the less likely it's going to need watering indoors. Now, if it's small, if it's like about this size, the size of this small snake plant, then you may want to water it like once a month or something like that. You may want to check it from time to time, but definitely don't drench it. Don't like think you have to water it just because the soil is dry. Aloe veras like to dry out completely between waterings. And the more light that they receive, the larger they're going to get. And the larger they get, the more water they will retain. So the key to keeping an aloe vera happy and healthy long-term indoors is to hold off on the water. Keep your aloe vera happy and don't water it. So that covers everything of the plants I don't water in my house. These are very happy and healthy plants. Just to run down again what all the plants were. They were the snake plants, they were cacti, the ZZ plants, and finally the aloe vera, which covers most of all the succulents. Now, if you, like I mentioned before, if you have a smaller succulent, then you may want to check it from time to time and water it once every month or every 2 weeks. But the larger your succulent is, the less likely you will need to water it. So that is all I have for this video. This has been Jaleesa with Green Mable. Thank you so much for watching, so much for being here. You could have been anywhere on YouTube, but you chose to be here, and for that I am grateful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye now.